Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to our advocacy training. My name is Amy Sapphire. I'm the Jeffco PTA president, but at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dawn Fritz and Sarah Roberts.
All right, awesome. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us to talk about advocacy tonight. Sarah and I are passionate. I am Colorado PTA's Director of Legislative Engagement and Jeffco PTA's representative on the deck.
And I am Sarah Roberts. I am Colorado PTA's Legislative Engagement Committee chairperson. And to Jeffco PTA, I always forget. I'm so bad. I'm our legislative chair. I'm so sorry. Yes, I did it. Okay, great. I wear a lot of different hats. Up until this year, I was our my kids' school president also. So I've like you, I have been part of these trainings. So I get it. Right.
All right, and so we always like to start these workshops with our mission. We like to ground ourselves in our mission during all of our legislative committee meetings as well, just in everything we do PTA. And our mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children.
I love that we start our meetings like this. I highly encourage you, if you are a president, to start your local unit meetings with this mission. I think a lot of times what PTA actually stands for can get lost in our day-to-day, event planning and fundraising. And it's just really important to remember why we are part of this group. And we serve a lot of purposes in our schools, but it's important to remember the mission.
And I'm sorry if you all hear my dog in the background. I'm solo parenting it over here and just solo everything at the moment. So I can't go get him. So we also like to ground our trainings in our purposes, and in this space, the purposes that we focus on are the ones bolded, which are to advocate for, well, you guys can read them. I don't have to read them for you, but these are the purposes that we center ourselves in as well.
So we're going to just get to basics and talk about what is advocacy. Advocacy is actively supporting a cause, idea, or policy, and we are achieving social change in a multitude of ways. So I like to empower parents and families that come to meetings by reminding them that they are an advocate for being there. And so just because you are at this meeting today, like you are an advocate, you are here, you are working to make a difference in your schools and your communities. Part of this also is educating people around a problem. You can provide policymakers, you can be a stakeholder in different conversations. So there are a lot of different ways to be an advocate. This is my favorite slide. I should have let Dawn do the first one. As I just said, there are so many different ways to be an advocate. You can be an informed voter. You can read newsletters. You can take surveys, join PTA, volunteer, join your school accountability committee. Sorry, I just had a 5-year-old walk in. But there's a baseline for advocacy that you are already doing in your school community. You can level up in different ways by being a PTA member. You're going to meetings, you're reading recaps, you're sharing updates from the legislative engagement committee, you're sharing ballot issues. You can be a committee chair, you can be a board member. You can even go all the way up to a state leadership role. But it's really important to reiterate this to you all so that you all can go back to your meetings and just empowering families by saying, like, I appreciate that you're here. You are an advocate. You're going to solve the problems in your school community, whatever they might be. Hopefully you get inspired. Maybe you want to join us, somewhere else in a different committee. Maybe eventually you serve at the Jeffco council role or larger, but there are a million different ways to be an advocate, especially in PTA.
I like to say even the conversations you have at drop off and pick up can be advocacy because you're sharing information within your school community.
So that it flows into the middle of
Right.
All right. So we always get ahead of ourselves on these slides, I feel like sometimes. But so yeah, there are many ways to be an advocate, and advocacy is the primary function and goal of PTA. It is why we're being. And we are here today building upon over 125 years of advocacy. So we're just kind of continuing that. And like Sarah said earlier, all of these things are advocacy.
A lot of times you are, if you're a PTA president or a board member, a lot of times you are that communication between your family population and your administrative or teacher population. And that's a currency that you can use to your school benefits and your family's benefits. Just keeping that line of communication open is a really, really big function of a lot of PTA board members.
And Sarah, you are the key here. So let me know when to change.
Oh, you're good. So engagement is the key to advocacy. So people are not going to do anything if they don't care about it. So if you're not asking for feedback, if you're not surveying your population and finding out what people need, if you're not inviting people to have these conversations with you, they're not going to care. They're not going to show up to meetings. They're not going to, be a part of the change making. So maybe, I don't know what this looks like in your school. It's different for everybody. But if you are out there inviting people to be part of the conversation, asking what issues your school might have, it might be something that you haven't heard of. Normally, if you're, a PTA board member, you're in the school, you understand what's going on. But a lot of families don't have that. They don't understand how things work at that level. Maybe there are problems that you haven't heard about because you're not out, having that chat on the playground, or, or these people can't come to your meetings because you have them at a different time that they can't make. There are a lot of different reasons. So a good way to find out is go have those conversations when you can. Do a school survey if you can, but you really want to make sure that you have your school population is engaged. And this slide just says a couple different ways about, how to make that happen. But really, all of these people need a voice, whether it's at your school level, whether it's at the state level, whatever it looks like. I'm gonna keep going. So PTA has 6 standards for family school partnerships. This is really important to look at and ask yourself throughout the year, are you incorporating all of these in how you PTA at your school? Standard 4 is speak up for every child. So the school affirms family and student expertise and advocacy so that all students are treated fairly and have access to relationships and opportunities that will support their success. So that's a really important one. We talk about that one because you can go to the next one.
The only thing I wanted to add here is that for our SACs and DAC, Jeffco uses the national standards for family and school partnerships and the work that they engage in for family and school partnerships and engagement.
Yep. So those standards are super important. Go and take a look if you haven't. The National PTA website has an amazing webinar. I think it's maybe 30 minutes, less than an hour for sure, that you can just listen to and hear about what each of those 6 standards looks like, or what it can look like in your school. So going back to that 4th standard, this is what it might look like in your school. Are families knowledgeable? Are they able to raise questions or concerns about their child's educational experience? Here are some ways to see if that's true. Your school staff skills are built up enough so that they are able to communicate with their parents. We're not just meeting, twice a year, like Dawn said, at school conferences. Is there email? Is there a time for parents to come in and ask things? Do you have a curriculum night? It can look, different at different schools for different issues. But this is one way that PTA can help facilitate some of these things.
And I'm seeing in the chat a question about if we have an example of a school survey.
So I will plug the School of Excellence survey, and I think it might still be available. If you don't know what School of Excellence is, it's a national PTA program. It helps you set a goal for your school, so you could get together with your school administrators and kind of choose a goal and what that looks like. What do you want to improve on? Is it communication? Is it belonging? It will walk you through. It's a whole template, and you can also add in other questions. So my school did this 2 years ago. It was really valuable. We added in some extra questions because we had a pretty specific situation going on at our school that we wanted to address and make sure that we are addressing it appropriately. And so I recommend that. Feel free to email me. I have my own, or I could share some of the questions that we used. So my email is at the beginning of this slide, or we can share it in the chat as well. But I would love to help you do that because I think surveying is really important. You really want to get everybody's voice heard, and everybody needs a seat at the table. So please.
Did you say the School of Excellence survey was on the National PTA site?
Yes, it is. And if that is not specific enough for you, like I said, please reach out. I would love to walk you through what we did and help you if you need help.
Sorry, I'm muting. And then, y'all have seen goal 2. Did you want to say anything about goal 2, or the slide pretty much cover it?
I think this covers it. I think we've already talked about that, about like, what are the barriers? If you're having your meetings right after school, I had a meeting at a school at 4:30 and I was scrambling to get there, even though I work at a school. Like, we have to think about what barriers are in place for all of our families, not just the families that show up every time. Does your PTA, your membership, look like your school? Are all of your different ethnicities, languages, is all of that showing up at your membership meetings? If it's not, then you might want to ask yourself, what could we do differently to make sure that everyone is having their voice heard? Everyone's invited to be part of the conversation. So this is a great website. This is on the Colorado Department of Education website. This has a lot of examples that adhere to that standard number 4. If your school is looking for different things to do, different events to hold that aren't just a carnival, that aren't a school dance, the promising partner practices have a ton of like actual school events that happened. People write them up, they submit them every year, and then they get published. So if you're looking for different ideas, this is a great place to start.
All right, so we'll talk about leveling up the advocacy liaison. So we hope that every local unit has an advocacy liaison. It was formerly called a legislative chair representative. And we're going to tell you a little bit about the more, but the role of the advocacy liaison is primarily to be a link between local unit members and the state and national PTA on policy issues, basically, to convey accurate information and to kind of encourage people to take actions to speak up for all children. It kind of sounds like it might be intimidating, but it isn't. There's basically just 3 steps. Be informed, keep your members informed, and promote advocacy. And we've talked a lot about this already, but there are different ways you can do this. So one way is by reading Colorado PTA and Jeffco PTA's newsletters, familiarizing yourself with Colorado National PTA's websites, which is copta.org and just pta.org. Attend the Legislative Engagement Committee meetings. Hang out with Sarah and I. Everyone is welcome. Every member is welcome, whether you're a liaison or not. You just have to attend 3 meetings before you can become a voting member, but your voice, even prior to becoming a voting member, is always welcome. We're lucky here that we have a council in Jeffco PTA, and they are fantastic and a fantastic resource. And follow their information. You can attend school board meetings, accountability committee meetings, town halls, and just kind of know what's going on with your elected decision makers. And you don't have to do all of those things.
No, and I was just gonna say, like, if you're following, national PTA on social media or Colorado PTA on social media, all of those things are approved. So if you want to share those to your PTA page for your school, like that's already been vetted. It's safe for you to do so. So even doing that step is a great, like, quick, easy thing to do. You don't have to reinvent the wheel when you're sharing out different issues that come up.
And yeah, keep members informed. One of the ways to do that is to always ask for a small amount of time during your PTA meeting to discuss advocacy. And you can discuss any of the information, like Sarah said, that you receive from PTA, or you can, if you're a member of the legislative committee or you get our emails, you can share the positions we've taken. Yeah, just sharing information about things that happen in our communities. Well, here we go. Wow.
Sure. So we just kind of were talking about this. You, as an advocacy liaison, you just want to ask your president, like, hey, can I have 5 minutes on the agenda? I have a couple of things to share. During the legislative session, you can share our positions on bills and ballot issues, share things that you see from PTA throughout the year. National PTA take action. They'll have different things, different campaigns that go on depending on, what's happening. And then Great Education Colorado is one of our partner organizations. That's a great resource if you, like Dawn and I, feel very passionate about public education. So there's some other things. And that, yes, the most important thing, this is not an all or nothing. You do not have to do all of these things. You could do one thing. You could, even if you just want to, if you're in charge of your Facebook page for your PTA, one real easy thing is, see what Colorado PTA is sharing and just share it out on your page. Like, that is a 30-second ask that can make a difference. You never know. But it just varies on the capacity that you have, the interest level that you have. But that's an easy thing to do.
All right, there are a couple of guidelines related to sharing on ballot positions. This doesn't count for decisions that are before elected bodies or decision makers. It's only related to things that are going to be on the ballot. And primarily what this means is that we never, ever endorse a candidate, ever. We are a nonprofit. We do not and will not and cannot and won't endorse or oppose any person who's on the ballot. We do, however, take positions on issues. The big key with taking a position on an issue is that you cannot use school resources. It's state law. So you can't use their printers, their paper, their mailing distribution lists, school email addresses. And if you are going to talk about the position that PTA has on ballot issues, which we're going to talk about some of those positions in a minute, you must rent the room. In Jeffco, it's as easy as talking to the school secretary, and they will send a request through the facilities management. And usually it's around $10 to $20 to rent a room. And once you rent that room, you are no longer using a school resource because they are giving you the nonprofit rate, and it's, for you to share positions. Anything else to add here, Sarah?
I just don't get intimidated by this. There are rules, but they're easy to follow rules. So, rent the room. We are policies, not people or parties. We are nonpartisan. So if you keep those couple of things in mind, you don't need to worry about, you don't need to get overstressed. Like, definitely follow the rules, but don't feel like that's a barrier to sharing that stuff.
And if you haven't rented the room and it comes up, you can state that PTA has a position. And if somebody organically asks what that position is, you can state and share that position and state facts around the issue. Here's just again.
Yep, so we already covered that. The only thing that
Yeah.
that this adds to is you can absolutely talk about voter registration. That's not an issue. You don't have to rent the room for that. So if you would like to do that, then you are more than welcome to.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the first position Jeffco PTA has taken. Jeffco PTA has taken a position of support of the Jeffco ballot issue 1A. And what this does is, so Jeffco is one of only 2 counties that has not what's called deep roost at all. Basically, there's a revenue cap of already collected taxes based on the current rates that the county can keep. And they can't, I think it's at the county level, it's population plus growth plus like new construction or something like that. It's different than it's at the state. So what ends up happening, it's those taper checks we get back from the county. And the one we got back a few years ago for like $3, or I think mine was less than that. What this would allow the county to do is it would allow the county to keep the money that they've already collected under the current tax rates, which have been recently lowered twice, and use that money for transportation and public safety, which includes addiction and mental health care and crime prevention. So that's what it would do. It would remove that limit so that the county could keep the money that they already collect in taxes that Tabor currently does not allow them to keep. And so we are in support of that because, well, we need all these things. I'm gesturing towards it. We need all these things. So does anyone have any questions on that? I know Tabor's
Oh,
always complicated
yeah.
when you
No
talk about it.
questions in the chat.
All
Thank you,
right.
Sandy.
Well, feel free to ask them. Feel free to reach out. It's a really good thing if we can get this passed in Jeffco because, well, public safety and transportation are huge issues that could use the additional funding because the county's actually had to make cuts in the last few years, even though the economy has grown and the tax base has grown.
Are there any easy numbers for this? Like to be able to say to people, on average, you will not receive $5 back so that we can put $50 billion, whatever the number is, toward all of these public things.
That's a good question, and we should look
That
into
is-
that because I don't know that this has had a lot of. I don't know if this has gotten a lot of airtime. I haven't really heard a lot about 1A. That's we can make a note and follow up because that would be helpful to know. I agree.
Yeah, I don't know what the amount of revenue collected above the limit is this year. But I can pull up the documents from the commissioners meeting and see if it has the exact and get that exact dollar amount that they're projecting. I think it's in there.
That would be helpful just because I feel like people otherwise are like, oh, well, I could be getting a check for $1,000 and I'm giving that up. And it's like, no, it's $3.26.
Yeah.
Cool it.
Exactly.
Well, and another thing is a few years ago, the county had to close a floor of the jail because they didn't have enough money to fund it. And so that rolls into public safety as well. That resonates with some people. And wildfire and flood mitigation is also another really important thing in
Road
Jeffco.
repair also. Like I don't know if any of you live in Arvada, but yikes. I feel
Well,
like
and I was only a few miles south of the Marshall fire a few years ago, so that's terrifying. All right. All right, so now we're going to get into Colorado PTA's positions. We oppose Amendment 80, which is called school choice. It's very short and it has the potential to be very bad. So Colorado, our families already have the right to school choice. They can put all families can put their kids in the schools that they choose, whether it's charter, private, or neighborhood schools. But what this has the potential to do and is it has the potential to create a right to vouchers within our Constitution. So that would make it that public money is going to private education. private education that, how did I hear it? I heard it said that private schools choose the students, not usually the other way around, because they have the right to exclude a lot of our students. I've also called it also has the power to remove some local control, because the way this is written as parents' choice is I've heard this, and I don't see any Karens on. I said this at Denver's training with a Karen in the room, and thankfully he's a wonderful sport. But I've heard this called by an attorney as the Karen Empowerment Act. So a single parent could go in and say that they don't want their child taught by a teacher who is a member of the LGBTQ community, or they don't like a specific part of the curriculum. And because of economies of scales, that would require the school to change the entire curriculum, or it would open the door to lawsuits. And it's not a guarantee that it would, but this is what I've heard from civil rights attorneys who are very concerned about this. So it has the potential to take money away from our public schools. If you want to know what happens when there's open vouchers, Arizona is a good case study. They said it would cost a relatively small amount, and I think it's ballooned up to something like $700 million. And it includes things like ski equipment, because that was a field trip that a family said that they were using for homeschooling or something like that. So this has
Legos is the other one. Like they were gonna buy Legos for like STEM or something as a homeschool family, and it was like $1,000 worth of Lego. Like it's not written well enough, and we already have this right. So even charter schools, this is harmful to charter schools. So just keep in mind that this is not helping anyone in the public school sphere. Even charter schools are not going to benefit from this.
And it's worded very simply as school choice. And so it's hard to parse it out unless you're talking to some of the attorneys who have worked in this area or other states who have gone through similar processes. And it puts the right in our Constitution. So right now, our Constitution, under current interpretations, does not allow public money to be used for private education in this way. And so what this does is it opens that door. All right. And these graphics are at this QR code. At least the ones for Colorado PTA, I should put this up there too. All right. The other one of the ballot issues that Colorado PTA has a position on is that we support Proposition KK. And it's because it creates an excise tax on firearms and firearms dealers, manufacturers, on ammunition and firearms. And the revenue generated has to go through for specific purposes, which would be to support crime victims, behavioral and mental health, crisis services for children and youth, and school security. So it's going into certain fund buckets, but it would just be a tax on firearms and ammunition. And I see, Ashley, Proposition KK just needs 50% to pass because Amendment 80 is constitutional. It requires 55% to pass. Current projections show it right on the line prior to people having knowledge about the implications, and it goes below, but I don't think it goes to 50%. The polling is showing when people do have all the information about what the potential, the rational potential of this. So, no.
We do have a question about the percentage to pass.
Yeah, that's what I was answering. So,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. Okay, thank you.
oh, sorry. Yeah, amendments require 55% to pass, and propositions only require 50% to pass in Colorado. And so we just wanted to share some opportunities for advocacy against Amendment 80, if you are so inclined. And let me see if I could copy these links into the chat, and so I can just click on them to pull them up. This is the No campaign. I'm going to talk about Public School Strong in a minute, because outside of my role in PTA, I'm hanging out in that space a little bit, and also in PTA. for now.
Can I jump in really quick?
Absolutely.
I think we should go over how we came to those positions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do need to, that is an important step.
So, so Dawn and I, as we have mentioned, do our legislative engagement committee meetings. Right now, we are meeting every second Monday.
Yes. And during the legislative session, we meet on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month.
Yes. So during the legislative sessions, we read a bunch of bills, we meet as a group, we read a ton of bills that we think might apply to public education or health and wellness. We have 4 categories that we align things to. And while we welcome everyone's voice and we have great discussions, we ground all of our positions in national PTA positions or our legislative platform. So in no way is it, a group of people just being like, well, I don't like that, so we're not going to support it, or, whatever the opposite of that is. So our process for that is, as Dawn mentioned earlier, after you attend 3 of our committee meetings, you become a voting member. You have to be a member of PTA to come to our meetings. And then we vote on these things. We also there are a bunch of different, nuances and different pieces to it, but we ground everything we do in positions and national PTA's resolution. So we can't go, if national PTA has already said, we are against this, or we support this, we can't take an opposite position to what they have already taken. So we are 100% aligned with national PTA. We ground all of our, more local things in our legislative platform. So just keep that in mind, that it is not, we value everyone's voice and opinion, but it's not about opinions. It is about our purpose, our mission, our positions, our platform. So that's where all of that comes from.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, sometimes we call it our legislative program. It includes legislative priorities for Colorado PTA, legislative platform for Colorado PTA's positions and resolutions, and national PTA's positions and resolutions. So everything that we take a position on, we do so using our foundational documents. And I just posted the Google document. Let me make sure. The Google document that actually links to the documents that we grounded our positions in for these 2 ballot positions. So yeah, that was a very important step. Thank you, Sarah. We should probably add a slide about that.
We should.
We used to have one, but anyway. But these are then, and here are just some different resources for advocacy against Amendment 80. One fun one that's going to come up is that there'll be door knocking in Jeffco. So if you wanted to hang out with some people who are canvassing, I promise it's not as intimidating as it seems like. They'll give you training and the materials, and they usually have a list of doors that are likely voters that might just need a little bit more information or a reminder to turn in their ballots. Okay, so this, I want to talk about Public School Strong, which is a new tool that has become available in Colorado to advocate for honest, equitable, and fully funded public schools. So I put the link in above under Public School Strong, but I actually started and am adminning the Public School Strong team for Jeffco. It's not necessarily through PTA. I just kind of stepped up because right now we're working on the No Against Amendment 80 campaign in that space. And I have created a petition that we can give to our board members about adopting a resolution opposing Amendment 80 because of the potential to take funding away from public schools. So if you want to hang out in that space, you can join the team and sign the petition. The link is in the chat, or the QR code is up. But it's a really cool new tool that we can use, and in the future, if Jeffco has a mill, which I hear is likely in 2026, we can use this space to advocate for funding, using the tools and organizing strategies through Public School Strong in a couple of years.
All right,
Yeah.
you may have seen this if you are a Jeffco parent, which I assume most of you are. There are a couple surveys out right now. This is the first one. I always get it mixed up though, Dawn. I don't know what the APA one is versus the AIR one.
You don't need to know what they are for this purposes. One is an input study and one is an output study, and it's very, very technical.
The bottom line is, we need everyone, like we said, surveys are a great way to be an advocate. So this survey and the one on the next slide are important to figuring out how we can adequately fund our schools, our kids. We're, these companies are taking the survey to find out what is going well, what is not, what is just basically what everyone's feeling is on how we're funding and how we're doing.
So what these studies, the grounding of these studies is the legislature created a bill that was they commissioned 2 adequacy studies to find out how much it actually costs to educate a child, how much it costs to educate a child with their unique characteristics. So how much does it cost to educate a child who may have special needs or may have special needs and they're at risk, or they're an English language learner, or yeah. So it's to determine how much it actually costs to educate a child and educate our children in Colorado so that we can go to the legislature, and because we expect this number to be a lot more than was even allocated without the BS factor, and say, hey, this is what it really costs. And these independent companies and these independent studies showed it costs X, and we're only funding education at Y. So it's kind of shows the need and how to get from, X to Y or whatever. I lost the train of my thing.
No, that was so much better than I was doing. This you should have just done.
You're fine. You're fine. Anyway, I've been sitting in meetings on these for a while. So the APA study closes on the 30th. I'm not sure when or if the AIR study closes. I put them both in the chat. They took me 5-10 minutes. It's basically asking what your priorities are and if you think things are funded at adequate levels. So they're pretty simple, but it's a great way to provide actual community input so that these studies are accurate.
Yeah, so speaking of the BS factor and school funding and how much it costs to educate a child, a lot of people don't understand how school funding works in Colorado. We noticed this trend last year and decided to put together a little webinar with some guests to explain how it all works. If you are interested, this is a great little thing to watch. Evie Hudak she's also part of our advocacy team with Dawn and I at the state level. She is a school finance wizard, know-it-all. So she did a little presentation on how school funding works. And then Lisa Weil from Great Education Colorado and Scott Wasserman had some follow-up presentations. This was recorded before we knew what Amendment 80 was going to be called on the ballot. So they talk about Amendment 80, which was then Initiative 138, as well as 2 other initiatives that have since been pulled. So they are not, thankfully, part of the ballot. But there's a lot of really good information on this, just so you have a baseline knowledge about how school funding works, especially if you're part of your school accountability committees, or if you're just going to be that knowledgeable person for your population at school. It's good to have that information. So I highly recommend, if you have, probably only half an hour if you skip through the things that fell off the ballot.
And I put the YouTube link in the chat because we created that QR code prior to having it uploaded to YouTube. So That is in the chat. It's an hour and a half, but like I said, you can just listen to the first 20 minutes and then the last. But it is a good resource there. We might actually, we'll have some time for questions here, but I just also wanted to share, or we just wanted to share some links to different resources. And yeah, you can find all of National PTA's positions and resolutions. You can find Colorado PTA's. You can find information on family engagement and yeah.
So I want to share, we should have put our save the date thing in here.
Oh, we should have. I forgot about.
So I can just share really quick.
All right, I'll stop sharing, make sure, yeah. The only other thing is we've already told you is that we meet the second Monday of every month and the fourth Monday during the legislative session. While Sarah's sharing, I'll put the link to join the Legislative Engagement Committee in the chat. Like Sarah said, you need to be a current 2024-25 member of your PTA unit. But we would love for you to hang out with us. So, your turn, Sarah.
All right, so we are having an advocacy open house on Saturday, November 16th from 2 to 4. So we love how many people are able to show up to Zooms and appreciate that you're here so much, but there is so much power in being in the same room with people who feel the same way that you do and making those networking connections and just talking to other people, sharing ideas. We're also going to be inviting some of our legislators in our community who are making a difference for our kids in public education. So please mark your calendars for this. There will be more information going out. This has been shared in the Colorado PTA newsletter at least once. So, and this will be held at the PTA office, which is in Wheat Ridge, so not too far for most of us in Jeffco.
And we'll be inviting all of the legislatures, regardless of political affiliation, from the committees that we testify in most often, which is education and health, wellness, and safety, or health and human services in both chambers. So we have a little bit of time here if anybody has any further questions or would like to discuss anything else, or even if you see something in your community and you would like, some help or resources on like the best way to advocate in that space.
So Ashley asked in the chat if we would be able to share this webinar. I assume since we are recording it, there will be a way to access it at some point. And then we can also send out just the graphics on their own for Amendment 80 and KK and 1A. Those I believe have already been shared on social media. So if that's what you're wanting them for, then you can go back and reshare, but we will make sure that those all get out so that you all can share them at your meetings. Also just want to say, oh, sorry, go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say we can drop those graphics on our social media pages too, and these recordings will go on the website as I've been sending them to Crystal as they come to me, and I don't know how long the process is to get them cleaned up and edited, but Crystal's kind of a whiz at that stuff, so we will get these loaded to the website as soon as we can.
And we can also email.
Yeah, we can email too.
The slide deck too. I'll send it to both you and Crystal. So you can also share that out. Yeah.
I was also going to say this was kind of heavy, like on our legislative engagement committee and our, ballot issues and stuff like that. But even though that is like a main focus that we have, Dawn and I are advocates in our own way. Like we have both experienced situations where our own children have needed us to step up and be advocates. So that's really like where I come, like the core and my belief in where I come from, that I try to be a voice for, families that maybe don't have a mom who has time to go and do all of that. So if there's a question or you want to chat about something that's advocacy related and not necessarily legislative engagement, Dawn and I are passionate about all sides to advocacy, and please reach out. We want to connect with you. We want to help you, and just be advocates. Not everybody is going to be a legislative committee advocate. There are, as we have said multiple times, there are a million ways to be an advocate in your community. So if you have a question on how to be the best one for yours, like, please just reach out. We would love to help you.
And back
And
to,
yeah, I was going to say, are there any questions? But I'll let you go too, Dawn.
oh yeah. I also wanted to just reiterate that you are very welcome and your voice is very welcome on the Legislative Engagement Committee. If that is your jam. Sometimes the meetings are dense and not everybody's jam. I respect that as well, but you are very, very welcome as PTA members on that committee. I say this often and I truly mean it. Our policy positions, the testimony that we give, is so much better when we have robust conversation in that committee about the nuances of PTA's positions and how exactly the bills and ballot issues will affect our children and youth. The more people we have giving voice and sharing their unique experiences, the better.
Does anyone have any questions, or is there, I mean, we've got about 10 minutes, so I would love to open it up if anybody wants to share anything or ask anything.
I guess I'll ask a question. You said, by having it at a meeting and giving that and sharing on Facebook, our Facebook page, are there any other ways that have been successful, especially during the election time, to sharing about 1A and Amendment 80 and Prop KK, that can help, deliver the right message?
Yeah, I think all of those things. I think sharing it at your meeting and social media are huge for that. And I think the more involved that members get in sharing, like we used to, I think last year, or maybe Great Ed called it like a pro public education voter. Like, be that person in your community, be the knowledgeable person that can share on this stuff. And you don't have to know everything, but we make it pretty easy with those graphics and things about why we're supporting or opposing. So if we can get, one advocacy liaison in every PTA unit, then, that's a lot of people who are sharing this information that are aligned with our mission and purpose. But yeah, be that person in your community that people will reach out and be like, well, I have questions about this. If you can answer it, like, send them our way. We'll answer whatever we can. But it's just building that community of trust and information so people know where to go, and they know why you're sharing it and all of that. So I think just being open and available.
Your community is better than we do. So what messages might resonate with your communities more than others. Like, I know that we've thought a lot about how Amendment 80 affects charter schools negatively because DPS has a lot of charter schools and it really will hurt them. And so we've been able to share some insights into that a little bit because that's their community. And it is our community to a certain degree too. So it just depends on, your audience and your community as to which things are going to resonate. Like, personally to me, because I have a child with a disability, knowing that public money could be going to support schools that would refuse to educate my child because of his disability resonates strongly with me. But that might not resonate as strongly with different communities.
Can I add a tip that I've been using, or
Yes,
just a strategy?
absolutely, Sandy.
So social media isn't what it used to be, especially Facebook. Facebook is kind of a wasteland right now. And
Twitter.
So I know, Twitter is just mean. But something that I've been using, and it's a little bit old-fashioned, but I've been successful with, is writing letters to the editor, because because we're in Jeffco, there's a bunch of local little papers all under one umbrella. So if you live in Golden, there's a Golden Transcript. If you live in Jeffco, not in Jeffco, but like Lakewood, it's the Jeffco Transcript. And Arvada has its own. So wherever you are, like, I mean, we're all Jeffco parents. We're spread out. If everybody wrote one letter, it would most likely get in, because like I've had like all my letters published and I think they're not getting enough letters. And I think the demographic who still reads the paper is a demographic of voters, if you guys catch my drift. And I just think it's something that, you know, if you really want something that you can do, that's something that everybody has the capability of working on.
I think that's really smart too, because that demographic, not solely, but a lot of that demographic also might not have children in schools, so they might not really have their pulse on, you know, what using public money for private education would do to public education. But that could be a way to provide information to our community members who might not be as closely connected to the schools as we are.
I got a direct message in the chat about sort of like, what is the primary role of an advocacy chair at school, and how some more affluent schools maybe view PTA as their checkbook a little bit for the school. So I'm just gonna say, I'm glad you asked that question. And yes, advocating for every child is the mission of PTA. So we need to be real careful about what we're giving to schools and how we're giving to schools. And when you're fundraising, it shouldn't just be, we're fundraising because we always fundraise. It should be, this money is going for this purpose. If you don't have a purpose, probably don't need to raise $40,000 or whatever, you know, your school is raising. It's pretty hard to make sure the money touches every child, but one way that we did it at my school was we have a high percentage of choice enrolled kids, and then we have neighborhood kids that are not, you know, necessarily in the same tax bracket. One thing we did was we made all of our community events free. We're not charging people for pizza. We're not charging for our fall carnival. We build that into our budget, and anyone in our community can come and experience that for free, so that the cost is not a barrier. So that's one way you can do it. And then I would just say, you're going to have to be the dissenting voice. Maybe next year, you know, you take on a bigger role, or you can start turning things around. A lot of PTA boards are only there for a couple years, and then the tide turns, and you know, maybe your president, maybe we'll talk about this later, person that sent me a message, because I kind of had a similar situation that I walked into. But the mission of PTA needs to be the core of what everyone is doing. We're not here to be funding different things for school that don't align with the mission and purposes of PTA. So I'd love to get an email from you on that, just so we can chat more about that. But I think I appreciate the question, because I think that is a bigger deal at certain schools, where why are we fundraising? Who is this serving? And are we serving all of our kids? So hopefully that answers.
We've been trying to get the word out that our primary role is to advocate for all children. And actually, our president, Amy, has said it a few times that I've heard, that just makes my heart sing. Just kind of bringing us back to this role of where we are here for all of our children. Our purpose, and she said it so much better than I do, but our purpose isn't to fundraise. Fundraising can be part of PTA, but it's not who we are. It's not our primary function. And some schools treat it like it's the only function, and that is not necessarily what PTA is all about, which is why it's great to have all of you attend here, so you can go back to your communities and be like, hey, did you know that PTA does this, this, and this? And we really, can we talk about, you know, fully funding public education? Can we talk about how this will hurt our schools? Can we talk about how, something may not be equitable within a school or between schools, and just kind of starting those conversations so that we can just keep spreading PTA vibe of advocacy, to use, younger terms.
And
Can you
please, like,
talk for, sorry.
go ahead. Go right
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I would also be happy to come out to a local unit meeting and say, here's what we do, and here's whatever. If you, because sometimes it's easier to run it up the ladder. Not that I'm, above you on a ladder, but like sometimes it's easier for, your group and for you as a leader to say, well, I heard this at Jeffco Council, or I heard this at Colorado PTA, and they're going to come and they're going to talk to us. So I'm always happy to come and chat with members also.
I was just going to ask, can you give like a 30-second thought on how the T part fits in from your point of view? Because I think that's somewhere our school is really struggling in terms of, not all, but some of the teachers view the PTA as their own personal wallet and have very high expectations of what the PTA should do for them, while also being unwilling to reciprocate in any way, shape, or form. And we've struggled with the new policies around how many hours teachers are allowed to or required to spend doing things outside of school hours, which means few to none of them attend most of the meetings, which is challenging. So any thoughts on how to right the ship in terms of the T part of the PTA and make them want to participate because it's valuable for them, without it just being, I'm coming so that I can ask for money?
I think that you just keep sharing what you're doing. And I think it's important to have, maybe you send out a letter and say, if you would like to benefit from, a teacher stipend, here are the rules. You have to be a member of PTA. The money for this has to go to purchase things that stay in the school, in the classroom, so that they will benefit the whole group. We're not buying, stuff that's going to go with you if you change schools. And then I think sharing this piece of it too, like, we're fighting for teachers. When we go testify on bills, we're fighting for teachers because we value teachers so much. And I think sharing, what Dawn and I do and what Colorado PTA does has value. And I think if you show your teachers, which I'm sure you do, but you show them the value of PTA by telling them that we're fighting for them, that we value them, that we appreciate what they do, that we understand the financial situation that they're probably in because of the way we fund schools. And just bringing that to your meetings. Our principal requires that one teacher team comes to every meeting every month. So I think also getting your administrators on board and saying, like, we do a lot. We need something back, because this isn't a transactional relationship. We should all be working in partnership together for the good of every student in this school. And if that's not what it looks like in your school, then that's a conversation that you can have with your principal and your administrators.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay. Like I said, email me. We'll talk to you about any of this outside of this, because I think we're running out of time.
Same. I just put Sarah's email in the chat, and I'm going to put mine next. And let's see.
The other thing that was in the chat, sorry, trying to scroll. Melinda said, in regards to this answer, what are collaboration ideas in play between non-Title I and Title I schools, focusing on give back financially and otherwise? Our school did a grant for another school. They were like, we would love to have this presenter come and do an assembly. And I was like, I would love to have you as a sister school, like, tell me how much it is. I would love to be able to do that for you. I think there are a lot of creative ways that we can support our, Title I schools, especially like in your own articulation area, get together. And that's what part of this is too. And that would be a great thing to talk about if you come to our open house, like connect in person with the other PTA people in your area, find out what people need, find out what has worked, what hasn't worked, and like, let's have that network. The state convention in the spring is also such a fantastic thing for people to attend. It is so valuable. The workshops are fantastic. The speakers are fantastic, but just building those relationships with other people and creating your network is like, please put it in your budget now. Like, go get it approved for your officers to attend. But this is a community, and we all need to, help wherever we can.
Hey, this is Ben Wilson from Parmalee. I wanted to note, like, we are trying to do a community event this October for a voter education or voter information seminar. And I saw that there are participants from Wilmot and Marshdale on this call. So I'm just letting you know that we have an event coming up that might be relevant to you and your community. I hope we can see you there.
And I did change my schedule.
Oh, I'm so thrilled, Dawn. Thank you. Okay, so we're on for sure.
So Jen, I'm Laura from Marshdale. Yeah, if we can reach out to each other. When is your event?
It's October 10th, 5:30 to 7 at Fire Station 2. And my PTA president has been sending out information to other PTA presidents, but are you? I don't know.
Received anything.
Okay, so I would like to connect with you.
Okay.
Maybe we connect in the chat.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
How broadly do you want this event advertised?
So we are set up for it's set up for 100 participants, and I thought we can also provide childcare. So 100 people total is the capacity. I think we're hoping to get some participants from each of the mountain schools, and we're also trying to put it out more broadly in the community where the fire station is located.
Okay.
Just because we have families that live there.
As I say, well, we have Jeffco's board on. I don't know if you'd want it advertised as broadly as everyone in Jeffco.
I think that might be a great idea. Because I think we're also going to do an online option, but it won't be video. It will just be the slideshow plus audio and a chat.
I don't know. Oop, yep. Crystal's putting her email in the chat for you to send her the information. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
But yeah, we're a little bit over, so I understand if anybody has to go, but I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions you might have once we stop the recording, or while it's still going, either way. But yeah.
I want to say thank you again to all of you who are here. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for what you're doing for your schools and your communities. You are making a difference, and I appreciate you. So thank you for sharing your evening with us. And please reach out or stay on the chat. I can hang out too.
Thank you both very much, and everybody who had their input and just came here to ask questions and just is interested in this. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording here.